All SEC matchup for week 5 in college football. Number 17, Alabama, taking on number 5, Georgia. So Bama, we remember, beat Georgia 41-34 at home last season and then moved to number 1 in the AP poll following that win. Although Bama has dominated the matchup over the last 10 meetings, we know that Georgia is pretty darn good at home. And the last loss, for the Dogs at home came in 2019 against South Carolina. But still, it feels like Georgia just can't get past Alabama, historically speaking. UGA 1-6 versus Bama since 2017 and 99-8 versus all other teams. That's just a whole lot of numbers that I'm throwing out there to tell you the lore and the storylines. And we have the guys here. We have Bud Elliott in studio and Chip Patterson to really break down this SEC matchup. Georgia looking for some revenge here, Bud. What is different about this Georgia team this season versus last season to make you think they might just do it?
Jacqueline, I think the biggest difference for the Georgia team this year is what they have at the skill positions. Last year, they were throwing a lot of balls, like 11 targets to Arian Smith, in that Georgia Tech game. They had so many receivers and suspensions injuries and suspensions last year at receiver. This year, they go out, Colby Young's back, right? They go out and get Branch from USC. Those guys can scoot, and their weapons just look so much better this year.
Okay.
Yeah, I look at this, and I know that Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann and this defensive staff are furious about the way that game went last year. They went and spotted Alabama a couple touchdowns right out the gate. Now, credit to Kalen DeBoer and the Alabama offense because they threw him some curveballs, right? They showed him some stuff with Jalen Milroe that they had not seen before. But Georgia storming all the way back in that game, but then letting it go on that big play to Ryan Williams at the end. I just think that we are going to see a real revenge angle that starts at the head coach and with the coaching staff because they know that they played better for the most part after they made those adjustments. It was just a couple of coverage busts right at the end of the game that led to Alabama being able to hold on for a win. So I think Georgia's preparation heading in will be much better and different. And I think that for Georgia, they just know that they were the better team last year. They just didn't start on the right foot. That is going to be so important in this game, making sure that they don't spot Alabama those early touchdowns.
Yeah, we always love the revenge game factor. Just makes it a little bit more spicy. Want to talk about Gunnar Stockton because he's coming off a great performance against Tennessee. 74% completion percentage, 304 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. Chip, how does he build upon that against yet another quality SEC opponent?
To me, it's about confidence because Kirby Smart told us that he needed to see from Gunnar Stockton, his quarterback, translate what he was showing during the weekend practice to getting it done on game days. And look, we can talk about how they were the Georgia Possums and not the Georgia Bulldogs with the way they weren't showing anything offensively in those opening games. But we really got to see the playbook open up. And Bud mentioned those new additions at wide receiver are just so important to being able to stretch the field vertically. It opens up the run game, makes everything better. But Gunnar Stockton's confidence, Gunnar Stockton making those tough throws on 4th down with the game on the line. You can really start to see that this quarterback, as he continues to build that experience in quality games, now he's really starting to step up. I really think that this is a player who played his best game as a Georgia Bulldog on the road against Tennessee. Now, if he can just continue to back it up, we're going to start talking about Gunnar Stockton in some conversations that I don't know if everybody was ready for when he was a backup quarterback to Carson Beck.
Chip, to build on that, if you look at who Alabama lost to last year, right, it was all mobile quarterback. Under Kane Womack, this Alabama defense has not done a good job of gap integrity when they have to honor the quarterback in the run game. And I'm not saying Gunnar Stockton's an amazing athlete, but certainly he's a much better athlete than Carson Beck was. And so I'm going to watch, and also like the opening loss in Tallahassee. Bama's run fits were a mess. If I'm Georgia, I'm seeing that. I'm going to make Bama prove they can actually fit the run when they have to honor the quarterback. So I would expect a lot of Gunnar Stockton until Alabama proves they can actually fit this.
Let's go to the Bama side of things. I want to go back to that loss against FSU because I remember watching that game thinking, oh my God, Ty Simpson, is he the guy, right? I think a lot of us had that thought and that feeling. Since then, it feels like he's really turned a new leaf and it's been a different quarterback. So, but how does he kind of continue on that upwards trajectory here?
So I think there was both encouraging and discouraging against Florida State. Okay. That's a hard first start to make on the road. On the encouraging side, he was making the right reads, Jacqueline, but I think the discouraging side, he was a little bit late to get to those reads. Like, you could tell he was throwing it to the right guy. He was just a count late. That's why Florida State had 5 pass breakups in that game. They didn't pick him off, but they batted a lot of balls away. He was just a little bit late with it. Against Wisconsin, which is certainly a decent defense, not a great one, he was on time with it. And I think if you're an Alabama fan, you take heart in that. Hey, maybe he's starting to get it. He's starting to calm down, understand what Kalen DeBoer is scheming up for him in this offense.
Yeah, this is an Alabama offense that sets up their skill position players to be able to make yards after the catch. And that's why what Bud was mentioning about the timing was just so important, because as you saw on the graphic earlier, with just two incompletions, like less than 5 incompletions since they got that loss to Florida State, meant Ty Simpson needs to be a point guard. Ty Simpson needs to be Steve Nash, Jason Kidd. He needs to set up Jeremy Bernard. He needs to set up Ryan Williams. He needs to set up Isaiah Horton, because these players are all athletes that out in open space can turn a 6-yard gain into a 60-yard touchdown. And so for him to be able to settle in, I think that Kalen DeBoer, offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, and the rest of that staff, they are going to be able to find man-to-man opportunities in this game. They are going to be able to set up Ty Simpson for success. But like Bud mentioned, he's got to be on time with it. You're going to be playing on the road, hostile territory, just like you were in Tallahassee, against a defense that maybe has a few more NFL players, so those windows are small. Just an immense test for Ty Simpson. You have to be encouraged with what you've seen from him since the loss, especially the mentality of just bouncing back from a loss. But ultimately, man, he's going to be the X factor for whether Alabama can win this game.
I always love when Chip gives us like a cross-sport reference. It's always one of my favorite Chip Patterson moments. Want to get to Bama's defense because they've only allowed 14 points over the last 2 games, but this is not Wisconsin. It's not ULM. It is Georgia. So how do you, I guess, prepare for that, get your mind right for that, knowing that, hey, yeah, we've let up 14 points in the last 2 games, but this is a whole other animal?
I think ultimately it's going to come down to, like, how do they play at the line of scrimmage? If you watch Georgia's front, their offensive line against Tennessee, Jacqueline, they had a lot of problems, especially on that right side. Tennessee has a good D-line, probably pretty comparable to what Alabama has, and they gave Georgia a lot of problems. Now, playing at home, between the hedges, a little more comfortable, I'd have to imagine. So it'll be up to Alabama to see if they can actually get that pass rush without having to blitz, too much against Georgia. But I actually do like Alabama's back 7 quite a bit. So I think they match up with these improved Georgia skill players better than most teams in the SEC would.
Okay.
Yeah, Alabama's been mixing and matching some pieces. They've had some injury issues along the defensive line that have sort of forced their hand there. But I like what Bud said there about the back 7, because that group's going to be tested. And it is definitely going to be tested more than you had to do against Wisconsin and against ULM. And so, can they be able to answer the call? Can Womack be able to set them up so that they aren't giving up those explosive plays? Because there was a time, just about this time last year, when Alabama's secondary was a little bit green, a little bit inexperienced, and that was how Georgia got back into this game. They stopped trying to run the football, and they said, let's just pick on this secondary. Now, everybody around Alabama has talked about the development and the way that group has grown up, but boy, they're going to have to prove it, because as we mentioned, Zachariah Branch and Colby Young have given the Bulldogs a very different outlook in terms of the passing attack.
All right, guys, we're going to put you on the spot. We need a game prediction. Chip, I will let you do the honors first.
I think that good offense beats good defense again, just like last year, just like we saw in the Tennessee game. I think it's a little high scoring, gets a little sideways, but give me the Dogs getting a win that they want oh so badly. Georgia 37, Alabama 31.
Chip, similar pick here. I'm going to go Georgia 30-27 over Alabama. I just think between the hedges, they're a different team.
Okay. So the guys are rolling with Georgia to get their revenge against Alabama. It is all going down on Saturday at 7:30 Eastern. Bud, Chip, we certainly appreciate it. CBS Sports, by the way, we got you.